I was told by a senior VP of a company that they still feel like they don't belong, like they're not smart enough, like they're a fraud, right? Like they were hired for the wrong reason. And that little thing, that little voice in our head that tells us that is imposter syndrome. Hi, I'm Irma. If you're not subscribed, please make sure to subscribe to this channel. I put out videos on both women in tech, remote work, and really giving you advice on how to move forward with your careers. So one of these big things that I want to touch on is the whole idea of imposter syndrome. I think you hear about it a lot in tech because that seems to be, that's where all the hype is happening right now. That's where we're seeing a lot of issues with diversity and inclusion and all these different things. And so the sharing of, hey, I'm feeling like I don't belong here, that feeling is shared by so many people. And it just took one person to start talking about it to make everybody else sort of think and be like, actually, I've been feeling that way too. And that's just a normal feeling that I have all the time, right? And I've faced imposter syndrome. I've known people that have faced it. No matter what level you are in your career, no matter where you are at in life, it still creeps up on you and it's really hard to push it away. So let's talk about it. Let's be open. Let's talk about what imposter syndrome actually is and a few ways that we can think about how we can not let it get to us as much. This is a definition that I grabbed off Psychology Today. Imposter syndrome is a psychological term referring to a pattern of behavior where people doubt their accomplishments and have a persistent, often internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. And just a disclaimer, imposter syndrome is not actually a disorder. It's not in the book of disorders that you can be diagnosed with. It all really comes down to the situation, social media, society, all these different things that affect our how we think and how we think about ourselves, how we view ourselves, how we don't think of ourselves as great or doing as much, right? So we must not be as good. And it really sucks. It's like this constant thought that we just all face, not even if you're not willing to admit it, like you felt that way at some point in time. The term imposter syndrome was actually coined by two clinical psychologists in 1978. Their names were Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes. And they came across this because they were noticing that people, even though they had accomplished so many great things, they still didn't see themselves how people perceive them. They didn't see themselves as successful or as smart, right? And that's where the term sort of first made its first inception. I've thrown out a few examples of what imposter syndrome might feel like, but I'm gonna throw out a few more. So feeling like a fraud, feeling like, why did this company hire me? What did they see in me? They must have hired me because they were short on people or they couldn't find anybody else. So I was like that last person that they just had to go with me, right? They needed somebody to come on board. If you think about that, it sounds kind of terrible when you say it out loud because it kind of is. Like, we're pretty much telling ourselves that we were only hired, we were like a pity hire. We didn't have the right qualifications, we didn't have the right communication skills, etc., etc. But instead, we were just hired on the sole fact that you were the last candidate and they had to pick somebody, right? And what imposter syndrome really does to us, it kind of limits where we can go in life. It makes us afraid of new opportunities. It makes us fear putting ourselves out there because at the back of our mind, we know that we don't belong. And that can be a really, really hard thing to get over. So I'm gonna tell you a few ways that I've tried to overcome imposter syndrome and I still face it to this day, maybe even to the same amount. But what has helped is talking about it. The action of talking about it to people. So for me, I talk about it in therapy. I talk about it with peer groups. So if you are a woman in tech, there's a ton of different groups out there that provide support, moral support, emotional support. And if you're feeling this way with your job, with your skill set, or just in life in general, like there are people out there who are willing to listen to you. They're willing to hear you like vent and talk about like what your fears are and really get to the core of what might be causing that imposter syndrome. Another great thing that you can do, and something that I do as well, is write down what you are accomplishing. And maybe every week, sit down and write like one thing that you accomplished that week at work, in life, with your partner, whatever it is, but something that made you really happy and proud of yourself. Because what happens is that you can come back to this list in the future and sort of remind yourself that you are worthy and you do have a lot of value and bring a lot to the table. So it's a really great way to kind of visualize what you're actually accomplishing instead of feeling down about not being recognized for your accomplishments and seeing that you're not really worth what you're getting in life. The last one I'm going to mention here, and I'm going to mention a tool, but also it's two ways. You can do this via this tool, or you can actually just do this by yourself. Shine Text, I'll leave a link to it down below. They actually send you daily affirmation text messages. And those are really, really helpful to just wake up to in the morning, and it's very uplifting and it's very positive. But you can do this on your own. You can write on a sheet of paper or on a post-it and just put it somewhere visible, like this simple sentence of affirmation, something that if you look at it, you're gonna kind of be able to focus on that over the fact that you are thinking that you don't belong where you are. And this is something I'm gonna start trying actually in the next few weeks, where I'm just gonna have a post-it note on my computer and hoping that will really help me with just imposter syndrome as a whole. So I hope this video was really helpful for anybody out there experiencing imposter syndrome. And if you're not, there might be people around you that are also facing this. So make sure to ask, allow people to vent to you, listen, and give advice if you can.